Recording. Good.
Chat. All right, happy Thursday. We're almost to Labor Day, and I hope you guys have some special plans. If anything, just chilling out at home and creating some finishes. So I love what Joy has said. She's enjoyed seeing everybody's finishes this week. I have too. It's always exciting for me to see the different projects that y'all are doing, and they have been looking fabulous. Now, I'm going to ask a favor. I want to see you. So we don't care what we look like, but this is class and you are showing up. So let everybody see you. And this isn't the glamour show. We are here to dive in, to learn something, to have accountability while we are kind of muddling through some stuff that we've never done before. Those of you that have been in other seasons and you've heard this vernacular, you've gone through it, you've struggled with some things, you've learned it, and now you're able to listen again and you're going, okay, I got this. But there are people that are here for the very first time that are going, oh my gosh, this is nuts. I've never heard all this stuff. I'm confused. I mixed this wrong. Let's just please go back to, I'm just reading this post on here. You can see me until I start eating dinner. It is about making mistakes and about solving problems and doing things that we're like, oh my gosh, that was a happy accident. I learned something. We've got to stop this perfectionism that we put on ourselves, that we're supposed to get it right the first time. What I want to continue to tell you is it's those mistakes that you are documenting all along the way that you go, I like the way this looks. That may be a new finish. So that's the joy of creating. Do not think for 1 minute that the artists that we look up to and we admire didn't have happy accidents and didn't have things happen that they were like, I didn't plan on that, but I kind of like it. And then so give yourself some grace to where you're like, I like this. But then here's something that I also want to encourage you with. Take pictures of it and share it in the group. A lot of you are like, I'm not going to do that. And I don't know if I used this analogy last time, but there's something about knowing that when you've got to go to weigh in at Weight Watchers every week, you've got that accountability. You know, you got to get on the scale, that it's like, I need to go in and post this. You need to post it. You need to talk about your frustration. You need to talk about how you screwed it up. You need to talk about what you're celebrating. You need to talk about the fact of how you overcame something. It's the accountability of posting it in the group. Can I get an amen? A thumbs up or a yes? Like, do that. The more engaged you are, the more you get out of this course. The more engaged you are, the more you're willing to share your failures, the more you will get out of it. And so it is so easy to be able to hide behind the screen and watch other people post things. I want each of you to be engaged. And I want each of you to give yourself the gift of taking the time to work on your finishes. You know, I have been having a lot of mentoring sessions and talking with people. And one thing that I'm realizing this about myself, and I see this in so many of us, that we are so busy trying to do so many different things that we need to allow ourselves the grace to say, I got to trim the fat a little bit. And I need to really figure out what it is that I love. And I've got to learn a word. It's a very simple word. Guess what it is? What's a word that we all need to learn? And we need to get off the guilt trip of learning the word. Somebody say it in the chat box. That's right. No. How many of us have this thing where we think if we have to say yes for people to like us. We have to say yes for people to think that's how that we love them. I have a dog on its last leg. And I cannot put her in the laundry room. She's coughing and like she's literally coughing up a lung. And I am my heart. We have her on all this medicine, so I am so sorry. Gene is going to be coming in and he'll take her. I don't have the heart to move her. So anyway, so that's that noise that you're hearing. But give yourself the grace of being able to understand what your bandwidth is. Guys, I'm going to tell you, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. This is also a marathon for our health. As I know, we have women, we have men in here as well as women, about 90%, probably 95% women. We have a bandwidth of what we can handle, and we have things that we are passionate about, and there are things that we want to be able to continue to grow in our personal life, what we want to be able to learn and educate ourselves, and what we want to be able to build into our business. And in order to have the time for you to be able to get in your happy place, like mine is, like when I'm able to create, when I'm in my happy place and I'm turning the music on, this is so sad. I'm sorry, this dog is so sad. Sophie, it's okay, honey, it's okay. So to be able to get in your happy place to where you are creating, that you've got to give yourself the gift of time. All of you, are you hearing that? Like, come on, can you not give yourself the gift of 2 hours a week to work on your finishes? In order for you to be able to launch a finishing business that you are, help me, Hannah, I got to tell Jean, please come get Sophie. That you've got to be able to have the time to immerse yourself in your finishes. It's just not possible. It's not going to work. And you can't think that you can jump on here and that you can listen to the mentoring and glance over the modules and that it's going to happen. It's not. Hold on, I got to give her a bone. Hold on. Sophie, honey, come here. Hold on. Come here. Come here. All right, hold on. Let me get a bone. All right, here we go. Here we go. Okay. Okay. So I guess I'm reminding you, give yourself a couple of hours a week. And if anything, schedule it. You schedule a hair appointment. You schedule to take a child to the doctor. You schedule to be able to go to a soccer game. Schedule yourself 2 hours to be able to work on your finishes. I have transitioned over into literally something I'm going to be sharing in the coming weeks. I have transitioned over from doing task list every day to creating a schedule that I block out time that I put things on, and it has been very freeing. So the main thing is I just want to encourage all of you to give yourself at least 2 hours a week and schedule it. And if you have to share with other members of your family what you're doing, say, mother is working and I'm developing my business in this 2 hours. If I could meet with you afterwards, more than happy to. But right now the music's on and I'm working, and people to come around you wherever you've got to go to shut that door in order to be able to do that. All right, so tonight we are going to be going over milk paint. Now, I'm just going to tell you, milk paint changed my life. A lot of people will say, Amy, when were you first exposed to milk paint? It was in Florence, Italy. And the interesting thing was when I was actually working in a bodega, which bodega is a little shop. If you don't know how this works, in Florence or Firenze, all through Florence, they would have the cabinet maker or the carver, the cabinet maker, then the carver. They would have a gilder. They would have a finisher. They would have the leather, the tannery. They had all their areas. Guess what? We can learn from this. They had an area that they specialized in. A jack of all trades and a master of none. You're going to have to learn to focus on an area and become a master in it. Mastery takes time. We talked about this last time, 10,000 hours to be able to reach a level of mastery. So quit judging yourself and being hard on yourself when you are still in the process of learning. So you've got all these little bodegas, and the one that I was working in, we did nothing but finishing and artwork and gilding. And so everything as we were working on it was being made from scratch on a daily basis. There's so much like cooking when it deals with milk paint. And so that's part of the beauty of it. Now, let me just say this, and you're going to learn this after a while. There's absolutely positively no way that you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot or anywhere and buy a product that is on the shelf that has been in a warehouse for 7 years and get a paintbrush and paint it and try to emulate a finish that was created in the 17th and 18th centuries. The only way you're going to be able to get that finish is, guess how?
Milk paint.
By using the same kind of products that they used then. Guess what? The formula that I am giving you and the process that we are creating has been around for thousands of years. Hence, this is part of the story you need to tell. This is why I'm so incredibly passionate about, one, you cannot be everything to everybody. Part of the reason why you're taking this course is that you're wanting to set yourself apart. You're wanting to be able to set your finishes apart. You need to be setting yourself apart as an artist. Part of why, and this is part of my first week in teaching the inner circle, I have literally have spent almost 40 hours already writing the material for the first business night, because there is so much that I'm wanting y'all to get in the fact that we are wasting our time and you're emulating all these other business models, and that is not what you're supposed to be doing when you are trying to be building a finishing business. Guess what? You're the artist. You're the person they want to get to know. You're the person that they want to understand your vision. They want to understand what makes you tick. They want to understand how you came up with that, or why the color, or this. And you're a storyteller. You're the passionate, creative person that they are buying into what you love, and they want to buy what it is that you paint. Did I hear that? Did you hear it? You have to continue to tell yourself that every day. And that is what's so great about being able to have a community of people. For me, I tell Jean, when I go and watch, and I know this is funny, but like when we'll go see a show and it's Cirque du Soleil, or I go hear like an Andrea Bocelli, I'm crying. And it makes me want to be a better artist and a better creator and a better painter. Why? Because I am seeing someone that is so driven for excellence. I know that they have practiced and practiced and practiced and failed and failed and failed. That they have reached an epitome of their place of such excellence that I admire them. And I want to turn around and do the same thing with my own business. Guys, that only happens through time and trial and error. And every time when you do that, it builds something up inside you. Some people may call it confidence. Some people may call it passion. I believe it's an understanding of who you are and what you want to create. If you could, everybody make sure that you're muted so that way we don't hear your puppies like mine, unfortunately, or your television or whatever. So when we go back to the bodega, we go back to all the individual people that specialized in the area of their craft. Guess what? You didn't see the woodworker and try to be the gilder and the painter and the artist. They weren't trying to, they had an area that they specialized in, and that's what they were known for. Everybody knew. So many of you, when I go and I look at your websites or I look at your Facebook page, or look, it's like, I don't know what your business is. I don't know what it is that you're going after. That's something that you need to be asking yourself. But all right, so let me go on back over to the bodegas. So when I was working in a bodega and it was focused on our finishes, we made everything fresh every day. I shared with you when we had Amy Howard collection and we were gilding chairs and we were repainting, we made our paint fresh every single day. We made our boule, we made our gelatins, everything, our glazes, everything was fresh every single day. We went in, it was a studio, that's what we did. When you are doing yours, it's going to be so much the same way. It's so much like cooking. But what a great story to tell to your customers. What an opportunity to do a Facebook Live, an Instagram, a photograph. Look what I'm making. Look at this beautiful, glorious mess that I am developing and making. This is what makes my furniture different. Am I inspiring you at all? So maybe when you're laying out your things, position it in such a way and get your iPhone and just go, boop. I'm creating today. I'll share with you in a few days what I have. So there's no way that you're going to be able to emulate the finishes that you see from the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century by using product that Behr has. It's not going to happen. They can say Venetian plaster all day long, but there's so many synthetic products in it, it will never give you the finish that you can get with ours, because ours, we are using the same ingredients. Now, when we talk about milk paint, and I'll jump over this for just a second, because then I've got to go back to staining. There's basically 4 simple ingredients for milk paint. It consists of lime, pigment, calcium carbonate. What else? Does anybody know? Casein, yes. And actually clay. So we've got clay, casein, calcium carbonate, pigment, and lime. Those products and the process and how we use them have been literally used for thousands of years. A lot of people will say, Amy, what's the difference between your milk paint and other milk paints? Does somebody know the difference? What makes the Amy Howard at Home milk paints different? They're natural, yes, but what else? There's something that I'm going for here, and it's a major difference. Trust me, right now, because this has been brought up in conversation, the pigments. We pay thousands in that shipping. Y'all don't know this. Shipping is through the roof. Have y'all been hearing people talk about this? Now this is crazy. A 40-foot container that cost $2,900 last year now cost $41,000. 13 months later. I cannot, and I will not compromise on our pigments. I cannot. Because the pigments, being from the natural quarries, they're all natural. That's why a lot of people will say, how come you don't have this yellow anymore? Guess why? They ran out. There's no more in the quarry. So I have to create a new color. So they are literally digging in these mountains and pulling out these natural pigments. This is what is so interesting. And I've run through this from time to time, people that have gone to Italy. And when you go, there's a shop that's been around for a couple of 100 years. And when I was a student, I went to Mr. Zecchi's shop. And the pigments would line the walls. And literally they're in jars that are these huge jars that you would imagine like in an apothecary shop. And to be able, it's like, now, I literally, if you need somebody to cry, you can call me up. I'll cry with you. If you're crying, Amy, I can text Amy, we'll call, and I will cry right along with you. I'm a crier. But there's something about the emotion to me of the quality and the history of those pigments. When I walked in Mr. Zecchi's shop, I cried because the vermilion, the phthalo blue, the colors, all of these different pigments, guys, they are documented back to the masters, back to the Sistine Chapel, back to the Mona Lisa. All these different paintings are documented from these pigments. And those same pigments are still there. And when you get this little bitty scoop and you put it into this little bitty bag, you're talking about spending $120, $400, $500 for a little bit of pigment. Because of the documentation, because of the quarry, because of where these pigments came from. Now, that's my history. So when I have these salespeople coming into my shop and they're going, here, I've got these synthetic pigments that you can get from Mississippi, and look at, and I'm like, go away. You don't understand. Because I know the finish that I will get with that, and I know if I use my pigment, when I go to antique it, I can see 3 different colors. Are y'all with me? Do you not see that? When you go into the, I mean, it's like I could start crying. You go into the antiquing process and it's like, there's a light gray, it's like, how is that happening? It's because of the pigments and because of the process that you've gone through. That's why that happens. So I know y'all are like, why does she blab on about all this stuff? You have to be able to differentiate why you are going through the process, so much so when you are explaining it to your customers that they're like, I want to collect your pieces, like they're pieces of art. And you're like, that's right. That's your differentiator. That's why you're doing this course. Is everybody with me? So let's go back. Let's start at square one. Now, and I've shared with you, I like to give you stories. I like to give you background. I want to give you history. I want you to understand the why behind things. So that way you're more passionate about it. That's the story that you're going to tell to your customers. But also, I want you to go back into your booklet as far as the modules, as far as doing it over and over again. I can't say it enough. Watching the module, taking notes, reading your notes, reading your book, going back and watching the modules again. I am telling you, every single time you're going to go, I don't know that I caught that the first time. Reading your notes again. Oh my gosh, I forgot to do that. Are y'all like going, yeah, I did that. Every single time you do that, and even when you go through this, maybe in the second season after your first season, you will remember things and you'll go, I need to try that the next time. I totally forgot. All right, so let's go in as far as staining. And we talk a lot, and when you're working on your samples, you're working with the gel stains, which are great. The gel stains are great because they're easy to use. They smell great. Most stains, to me, I can't stand because they're thin. I can't control them. They smell to high heaven, and they're just not a really nice, enjoyable process. Are y'all with me? It's like, and I can't help but think sometimes my mother's looking down from heaven and she'll be like, women should be architects. They know when to put broom closets in by the kitchen. It's like we think of things, but it's like, I just hate stains. And so to be able to have a stain with a gel, a consistency, it smells good. So the whole reason for the stain is to be able to emulate that brown finish, because the whole idea of things being done with milk paint is that maybe in the very beginning of the life of that piece, it was stained. That's it. People are like, so that's why we stain it first? Yes, that's why we stain it first. So if you're starting on a raw piece, you can stain it first, which I will just tell you, and it's okay, you're my tribe, you're not gonna get on social media and get me in trouble, but we are introducing it's gonna blow. We have a whole, I'm just gonna go on and tell you, I don't care, I'm gonna get in so much trouble. There's 3 things that I'm so excited about. 1, I am introducing a full line of molds that you'll be able to make your own hardware. Out of resin. It's hard, opaque resin. Number 2, we will have molds that you will be able to do all your applique. And the material is not air dry clay. It is a flexi material that allows you to be able to do, yes, a lot of things. And then number 3, we will have rolls of material, all the products all made in Greece, for you to be able to do your appliques and things on. So you're going to really be able to take pieces that are very simple and be able to expound on them. Oh my gosh, we have created so many great new products. We have a new lining paint that you'll be able to use on your, so that's what I'm saying. Everything from our glass beads and we have an ornamental puffy paint that we're introducing. There's so much stuff. And that's why I'm saying you're like in elementary school right now with your old world finishing course. You're being exposed to all this new stuff and your mind is like going, and I want your mind to continue to grow. And I want you to continue with your continuing education until we just get this into a PhD mastery level. So anyway, all right, don't go posting that on the before and after page. This is the old world finishing group. So, all right, so take me back, help me, Hannah. Okay, so staining. So we're staining because we're trying to emulate on that piece that it is stained. It's the way it was originally. And it gives it depth. It's all about wearing it through to where you see that depth of that showing through. One thing you need to be really careful of when you're staining is don't get your stain really, really dark and then come on top of it with a really light color. You've got to cut that stain down if you're going to come on top of it with a light color. Is everybody with me? It doesn't need to be like black, like dark brown, black, and then come on top of it with maybe Strasbourg or a creamier, stony color. So if you're going into your light reflective value, your LRV, if your light reflective value is darker, and here's where I want you to pick up on this vernacular. I want you to be comfortable enough with it when you are talking to a designer or an architect or an end user that's going to be your customer. And then you want to go, okay, so now you may be educating them and they're looking at it, it's like, now it's going to be different on yours, because if we're going to go into a dark gray, the light reflective value of the stain that I'm going to do in my first color or whatever, however you want to say it, it's going to be darker. So it's going to be a little bit different. But there it goes back into, again, about you doing the finishes for them. So now if you stain a piece if it's raw first, and versus if you have a piece that's already stained, can I start the process with the milk paint on an existing stain piece, or do I have to strip it? Put in the chat box. Can't. Just clean it. You can't. That's right. So what I will do is I will clean that stained piece really good with clean slate. And I will say this, if it's a top, I will paint the one step on top of it because it needs that to be bonded. A milk paint finish on a surface top that's going to be used a lot is not optimum. Is everybody with me? It's not optimum. So that's why it's best to do more of a stone looking finish or a glazed finish that complements with an apron or a base or a table base or whatever with milk paint. You're going to learn as you go along things that are going to be more complementary. And I even like stained tops with a milk painted bottom. They're pretty. Just make sure they're not, the value of them isn't too great. So if you've got a stained finish and it's going to be on the top, I would do the one step, or I would do the milk paint and put the binder in it. You can add the milk paint binder to milk paint and it will grip and bond almost as well as the one step. So that way, if you're working in that mode and you don't want to add the one step, you're fine. So let's talk about the bottom. I clean it really good with clean slate. And I will allow it to air dry really well. And then I'll mix up my milk paint and I'll paint it on. It was a dresser that I did. It was an ugly dresser too. And I did it I mixed up Amalfi Coast and Noir and made the most gorgeous blue. That's one of my favorite combinations, Amalfi Coast and Noir. And I usually do about 3 parts Amalfi Coast and 1 part Noir and mix it up. And I did cracked gesso first. I cleaned it with the clean slate. I did cracked gesso first. And make sure that you sand the cracked gesso really, really well. Hold on, let me see. Can you apply the cracked gesso to a painted surface? Yes, you can. And why shouldn't you use milk paint on the top if you sealed it? Would it work? Yes, it does. My concern is on tops of people. Now, let me say this. I'm thinking about your customers, okay? I'm not thinking about you. If this is yours, yeah, go for it. But if it's your customer, I don't want them calling you 10 years down the road. And will they? Yeah, they will. Like, I've been doing this 35 years. I literally had customers call me 20 years later, and I think I shared that with y'all, didn't I? I had a serpentine commode that was in the line. It was done in milk paint. I know y'all gonna think I'm crazy, and it's okay, I'll just tell you. I bought this piece in Atlanta. I paid $9,800 for it. It was from the early 1800s. And now you're talking about a conversation with Gene Howard. I begged him for 2 days. Gene, please let me buy that piece. Gene, please, I promise, if you'll let me buy that piece of furniture, I will emulate that finish so close. Please let me buy that piece. And he was like, Amy, that's too much money. We can't afford that. And I'm like, please. So we bought it. They were asking $13,500 for this piece of furniture. I got them down to $9,800. And we took that piece home. We made it. Do you know we made thousands upon thousands upon thousands of that piece of furniture? And we had so many people that would buy it and would have it for years. I had one lady that had that piece of furniture for 20 years as her nightstand. And she called up, I'll never forget. She called up and said, I've just broken down. I'm going to buy another one of these nightstands. I've had it for 20 years and I have looked and tried to find a piece that could sit on the other side of my bed and hold its own like this piece does, and I can't find it. So I want you to match it exactly. And I'm like, I can't do it. It's not possible. Oh, yes, you can. This was a very prominent woman in New York. And she was like, oh, yes, you can. I was like, no, I can't. She goes, no, my assistant's going to pack up the bottom drawer from my chest and we're going to mail it to you. And you're going to have it there in your studio and you're going to be able to match it. And I go, I can't do it. You bought it 20 years ago. There's an oxidation process. And unless you're mixing it, and we're mixing the product that day, I said, I can't mix it. I can't match it. Do you know that she bought 2 more chests and put that one in another room in her house so I could do them at the same identical time? Because you know this, when you're mixing your paint, and you're painting it, you're like, enjoy it, because there is absolutely positively no way that I can match that again. Am I hearing? I mean, is that right? You can't. That's part of the beauty in it. So all right, so let me go back. So we've got our stain. I can put the cracked gesso on top of the stain and go through the process that I made sure that I did the clean slate. Yes, Joy. Well, the funny thing is, and I'll tell you, it's no big deal, but those chests that I made that we resold, they were $10,000 a piece. And the finish is what sold that piece. And that, I told y'all the story about Bill and Hillary Clinton, didn't I? Oh, come on. Have I not told y'all that? See, this is, okay. So I was on the phone. Now I've given it away. I was on the phone. They came and got me out of the studio and they said, Amy, there's a lady on the phone. She said she has to talk to you because her client is demanding that she talk to you. And I'm like, who's her client? And they're like, she won't tell us. So I went in there and I was like, hey, hello, how can I help you? And she was like, this is so-and-so. And my client is moving into the State Department and she collects your pieces and she wants to commission you to do a piece for the State Department. And I was like, our State Department office. And I said, who's your client? And she said, Hillary Clinton. And I go, really? She said, yeah. And she said, Bill and Hillary collect your pieces. They have 14 pieces. They collect them. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And so she said, this is what she wants, blah, blah, blah. And so I was so excited. Now here's the little kid in me. I'm like, what's the first person you would have wanted to have called when you got off a phone call like that? Who would be the first person you would call? I'm curious. In the chat, tell me. It's my mom and dad. So I called my mom, answered the phone. I said, Mom, I need to talk to both of y'all. And that's when, I don't know about y'all, but your parents, it's like one on one's in, one on the other. They know it's a big deal. It's like, Amy's on the phone. She's got to talk to both of us. So they're both on the phone. And it's like, all right, so I just hung up the phone and I was talking to this designer and she goes in to tell me that Bill and Hillary Clinton are her clients and they've collected 14 of my pieces and she's moving to the State Department and she wants to commission me to do a piece of furniture. I'm like, how great is that? There's this long pause. He goes, my dad goes, well, that's super, honey. But be sure and call me up when the bushes want some. And he hung up the phone. That is a true story. God bless him. He was as honest. He could have cared less. And it was so sad because here my mom is still on the phone and I'm crying and she goes, honey, I'm sorry. He doesn't get it. It's like, that's wonderful. I'm thrilled. That's fabulous. So if I'd called and told him that, I did have other, I made a bed for Brett Favre, stuff like that, he'd be really excited about. But anyway, so just to tell you, the reason I told you that story was because when somebody can have anything they want, and they want your furniture, as artists, we're saying they like us. They love what we do. When someone's buying your furniture, they're buying you. They're buying your love, your passion, how you put that brush on there, how you antique it, how you pour your life into that piece. So why on earth would you name your business the Papillon? Why on earth would you name it the Humble Bee? Why on earth would you name it something else? It's you. They're buying you. So I don't want to see any more posts about what do I name. They're buying you. You need to tell your story. You're the artist. You're the creator. You're the one that has seen that finish come to life. And when they see it finished, and then when you name it, it's like, this is really great. Like, I want another one. Is everybody with me? All right. So, gesso. Let's go over gesso. So is cracked gesso or legno gesso? I used to call it legno, Legno. Legno means what? What does legno mean? Yes, furniture. It's Italian for furniture gesso. So furniture gesso is totally different from gesso that would go on canvas. The whole reason for putting gesso on canvas was to prime the finish so it would be ready to accept the paint and it would adhere because it didn't have the binding elements in it. So much of what we're using and what we're doing has been done for thousands of years, and that's why we're kind of following those stages and those steps. So, question. Can cracked gesso that we're using on this milk paint that we are mixing, can it be used with one step? No, it cannot. It cannot. And the reason is because it's specifically formulated for milk paint. Now, and they're totally different. Don't ever think that you can get the cracked patina finish that you did last week that was very tactile and textured and big and while you can layer it, and it's just totally different. The whole point of the cracked gesso is to be these tiny little fissures, these tiny fissure cracks. Now you can layer the cracked gesso enough to where that paint will just pop off. And that's the beauty to me. That's when my heart just goes, oh, I love it. And most people would be like, oh, that's like ruined. It's like, what you talking about? It's like, that's what makes it fabulous. That's when you're like going into the shop in Paris, and Gene looks over and the gal shopping in there with me, he's like, isn't that the photographer you like? And I'm like going, now I can't remember her name. Oh, Annie Leibovitz. And it's like Annie Leibovitz is going, what do you think about this sofa? And I'm like, am I really having a conversation with Annie Leibovitz? Is she really asking me my opinion on a sofa that she's wanting to buy? I mean, it's like, because we're in there. Do y'all know who Annie Leibovitz is? Oh my gosh. But guess what? She puts her pants on just the same way as I did. She's a creative just like me. And so we're in there talking about the finishes and what is so great about it. And when I ask, here's what's embarrassing. When I ask the shop owner, how much is this piece? And he says, $450. He wasn't talking $450. That's when you have to put your poker face on and you learn and you go, it's lovely. It's lovely. It's just so inspiring. And Gene's going, and it's so funny. We walked out of that shop and Gene goes, a house, a piece of furniture. A house, a piece of furniture. How do you decide on stuff like that? It's like $450,000 for a Jean-Michel Franck piece of furniture. So it's crazy. All right, so cracked gesso. You cannot use it on one step. You can, more money than sense. That's for goodness sakes. Yes, that's true. But that's how I learned how to create finishes. If you're going to emulate something, if you're going to copy something, if you want something to look like something, it sure isn't going to be out of the Ballard catalog. Is everybody with me? You should be emulating people. That's like, I don't understand it. On Pinterest, everybody's wanting to create these Ballard catalog finishes. I'm like, why? It's particle board with a paint and finish over it. You can do so much better than that. Let's look at the pieces that are selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let's go to First Dibs. Let's look at Macassar Ebony. Let's look at all those finishes. That's what you want to be emulating. All right, so then when we go into milk paint, one thing, and I will tell you though, let me back up, and this is something that I do want you to play with. Doing a stain finish and doing the cracked gesso on top of it and antiquing it, can be a great finish. If your cracked gesso goes light brown or pink, you didn't let your stain dry enough. A lot of people rush it, they go too fast, and it will have a tendency to go pink on them. But a really great looking finish, and that would be a great sample for you to be able to do. Do your stain, do your cracked gesso, antique it, and wax it. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So you've got to make sure though you always put wax over it, because milk paint finishes are not these really hardy finishes like people are used to them being on furniture. They're not going to be the nitrocellulose lacquers. They're not going to be the polys. And you cannot do a milk, please, please, please don't do this. Don't go and put polyurethane on top of your milk paint finish. What is it with people thinking that they've got to have these really hardy finishes on top of things? When we have bought so many pieces of furniture from Italy and France and Scandinavian countries that all they have on top of them are wax. The longer beeswax is on things, the carnauba and the beeswax, the longer it's on, the harder it gets. Month after month, year after year. Did y'all know that? It gets hardier and hardier and hardier. So you can enjoy things. If it gets a ring on the top of it, so be it. I've paid a ton of money for things that have rings on there. To me, that's part of the beauty of it. When we were making our furniture, we would literally take something and put it in and then go around it like this to create a circle on the top of it. So it was making it look like an antique piece. Do you think I'm kidding? We did all the time. Let me see. Amy, a stained finish and cracked gesso and that's it? Yep. You don't have to. You can antique it. I said do a sample and look at it. I think it's beautiful. Usually I'll take off quite a bit. I will probably take off about probably 60% of my cracked gesso. Do not judge the finish until you've antiqued it and you've waxed it and you've done dust of ages and dark wax. Dark wax is imperative on this finish. Imperative. Yes, you can color the gesso with pigments. Yes, you can. This is why I'm saying you've got to experiment. You've got to document it. And then name it, give it a number and go back. So that way you're like, I am loving that. If you don't allow yourself the freedom of experimentation, you're not going to come up with stuff that can be solely yours. That's what you're going to build a brand and a reputation from. Which, I don't know if y'all watched the video today. I am so excited and all over the place tonight. Let me focus. But we saw some more of the site, the Encore Society. Do y'all love the name? Isn't it the greatest? That is going to be our furniture marketplace for y'all to be able to sell off of. And you will each have your own platform, so you'll tell your own story. So you need to be getting a headshot right now. Like be planning on not a glamour shot, but just a picture of you that tells your story. And so I do encourage you to be getting furniture and painting it and working on your repertoire finishes, because you're going to want to be able to put those pieces on there. But you'll finally have a beautiful marketplace to be able to show your things and ship them all over the country. I can't wait. Let me see. Do you wait for the gesso to dry and then sand or remove when wet? You let it dry and then you remove it. You're in the Encore in Las Vegas right now? That is weird. Yes, and it's important to send the card with your furniture to detail the natural wear and how you can clean it. Yes, absolutely, Tamara. Hey, Tamara. All right, so yes, that's the importance. That's why I talk about putting a little card in there to be able to tell how to take care of your piece. All right, so, but your milk paint. One thing that you'll learn from the idiosyncrasies of it is the fact that if you shake it, you're going to have bubbles. Can I paint milk paint with bubbles? what's going to happen? No, that's right. What's going to happen? If I paint with bubbles, what's it going to look like? Bubbles. It's going to have craters. That's right. It's going to have craters. Let me go back and answer that question. So when you talk about your own platform, so all of you on the Encore Society, you'll have like your own page. So you'll come up and there'll be a highlight of your piece of furniture, a hero shot. And if somebody sees that, there'll be categories and it'll say like Scandinavian or nightstands or chest on chest or beds or whatever. And when they go in that category, and then these images, there's a whole grid of them and they're coming up. And when they click on that, it'll say, check out the artist. And then you click on that. And then I see your profile. And then I see your story. And then I hear what you're passionate about. And then I can click and then I can see all the items in your store. Does that make sense? So anyway, so you cannot paint with bubbles because you're going to get these ugly craters. It will totally ruin your finish like that. One thing that you're going to have to get used to, and this is truly something that you're going to get used to over time, is when you're working with milk paint, there's this constant, easy agitation that keeps the pigments in the bottom just continuing to flow. If you've ever watched anybody knit, have you noticed? Now I can't knit. I don't know how people do it. I watch these women and they just, it's like, I'm like, now, yes, I could do that all day long, but as far as making it into a pattern or a jacket or something, no, can't do it. So when you are working and painting and you're dipping your brush down in there, it will become, it's just second nature. It's like, you've got to agitate it each time. You can't dip that brush in the top and know that there's any pigmentation on it. You've got to just constantly agitate it and paint it on, and you will get used to it. No, it's not live yet. The coders are continuing, they're finishing it up. All right, so when we talk about layering our milk paints, last week we talked about cracked gesso and the double Oreo. If I'm wanting to create 2 or 3 different colors of milk paint, so I've got a light gray, and then I want to do a dark gray on top of it. So I've got my stain, my cracked gesso, my light gray. Do I put another coat of cracked gesso, or can I go on directly on top of it and add the dark gray? You can put it directly on top of it. Yes, that's correct. You can also, one thing, when we talk about layering of color, it's really best to work in complementary colors and monochromatics. So you've got a lighter taupe and a darker taupe, or a lighter gray and a darker gray. You can put complementary colors like a red and put a black on top of it. You can do that. You can do like a pale rose color with maybe a pale taupe on top of it. You want to make sure that that bottom color isn't too pronounced or too dark. And you always want to go from light to dark. If you do a dark color first and put the lighter color on top of it, it's going to have a tendency to look like malted milk balls. So you need to be very careful with that. So then when you go into the other, gotta look at my time. When you go into your antiquing process, it's probably good to, one, you've always got to have your water and you've got to have your antiquing glaze. Every time you put your sponge down in there, you want to make sure that you clean it out. It's just, I put it in the water, I put it in the antiquing glaze. I put it back in the water, put it back in the antiquing glaze. Something that I always do and I don't know if I told you this in the module or not, but I'll take my chip brush and I'll dip it into straight antiquing glaze before I touch it with the sponge, and I'll splatter it. I'll hold that brush from the base and I'll pull it to the top and I'll splatter it to where I've got these just tiny, this is an area you could really overdo this. I could see some of y'all going, oh yeah, this is fun. And like you're doing it everywhere. Please don't overdo it. So we're talking maybe 10, 15% at the most. And just have these tiny little specks. Let that completely soak into the paint. Then go through your antiquing process. Those little spatters will not show up until you actually wax it. They're not pronounced. They're not really like you're not going, wait, I'm looking for it. It's like, guys, remember, this is all about just this slight layering, the subtle layering of this technique that you are building up, and they all build on one another. It doesn't look like fruitwood spots. It looks like a darker value of that color. It just looks like a darker value of that color. It gives it depth. It's all about adding depth to it. So then, yes, you can totally do a pink with a green over it. Yes, that's another thing. It's like when you're doing the milk paint, you need to experiment with different colors. You really do. Because that's really going to build, you don't realize it. Your portfolio is your calling card. And the more that portfolio just knocks your socks off, people are going to look at it and they're going to go, crap, she's good. He's good. I've never seen stuff like this before. What would you charge to do this and such? Do not undercharge yourself. That's just something I've got to get on to y'all about. Y'all are really not charging enough money. Yes, and you can use furniture tonic on it, but it's going to make it totally dark. It's going to do the whole thing dark. Yes, can you use furniture tonic? 100%. But I like coming back after I've antiqued it. I always start on the edges. Remember, a lot of you, when I teach you in person, what's the first thing y'all do? Man, y'all go right for the center. Always think, where's it going to age first? Around the edges. That's where you start first. And you got to lay that thing down flat so you can have control over it. You're 5 feet away. You're continuing to look at it. You're looking at your over eye track, your composition. And it's not about pulling that paint away all the way around. It's just maybe a little bit over here, a little bit over here. And here's the other thing. If you take off too much, what do you do? What do you do? If I take off too much and I've got this huge spot, and I'm like, oh no, I've loved everything, but that right there, you put more on. Do I do it with the brush? No, you do not paint over it. You do. What do I do? What do I use? My girls, my guys, that's right, your fingers. You just dip, I'll put my finger down in there, I'll get some of that pigment on there, and I'll just, it's like, and a lot of times, and I think I've shared this with you, I will take off more intentionally so I can come back and do that. Because then when I'm finished, it's like, it looks so good. Nothing looks like it. So it's these happy accidents that you can create yourself. There, you want to be able to get more depth. So then you do want to make sure, can you hit it with a hairdryer and speed it up? Absolutely. Can you add more? Yes. Can you take more off? Yes. It's very forgiving. And then you're going to come back. And here's the other thing. When you're putting your wax on, please don't put on too much wax. Offload that brush, that wax, because the whole idea is you want to be able to see these variations of the wax on the milk paint. That's when you start seeing multiple colors. That's when your heart just kind of goes, oh, like, I love this. It's your happy place. Then you add a tiny bit of dark wax. The fastest way to ruin a project is with dark wax. But we need it to be able to just on the tops of things, just on the tops, and then let it come to almost tack. And then you put on the magic fairy dust, that dust of ages, and blend that. Please, 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 please do not put it on if it's still greasy, if it's still kind of wet. You'll ruin your project. You'll ruin it. Let it come to where it's almost completely dry. And then we'll add the dust and grind it in there and get it down. That's when it's like, oh, when people are posting their stuff before they've waxed it and put dust of ages, I'm like, stop, don't do that. We got to see it finished. It's like, it'd be like me taking a picture of me with all the foils in my hair. It's like, no, wait until the color's done and they've blow dried my hair. It'll look a lot better. So don't do that until you get to the very end. And then that way it's like, now it's beautiful. And don't over buff it. So many of you, you get into it and it's like you're buffing it everywhere. Does a piece of antique furniture have the same finish and the same sheen everywhere? No, no. Get on First Dibs. Go look on the most expensive websites of furniture. So many of the antique dealers across the globe, and look at those pieces and see where they're worn. These are pristine pieces that they have cherished. They have pedigrees. They've not been drugged down the street with a pickup truck. And wild animals have not chewed on them. So there are certain antique malls I cannot go in because I'm thinking no one. It's like, I don't know, I talk too much, but it's like no one taught them the difference. Like you have to learn, and now your eyes being refined to where you know what it is that you're emulating. You're going to learn the colors and the way it looks. You can learn to layer these colors. That's where you'll get some inspiration on colors, is from actual antiques. It's like, oh, I love that combination. Then execute a sample to be able to have with it. All right, so I'm over. It's very, very important to start on time and end on time. It's just part of being disciplined with your time. And I know that your time is valuable. And where I could talk all night about finishes. It's kind of sick that I get excited about that. But I want you to be able to come in here, hone in on it, and then you're like, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch that module again. So thank you. I appreciate you all so much. You do more for me and my purpose in life more than you'll ever know. So Jean and I are headed to Serenbe for the weekend. I'm really excited. So I am going to do some goat yoga and be on a golf cart and act like a child again. Jean's like, I'm not doing goat yoga. And I'm like, I can't do it by myself. You got to do it with me. So have a great holiday weekend. Hopefully you'll have some time that you can create. That's your happy place. That's your time, something that you need to be able to do for yourself. I love you guys. This will, Melinda will have this up tomorrow. So that way, if you want to watch more of it, you can, and refer back to it again and again. Post your samples. Post your samples. You can't, if you don't do the samples, you're watching the modules, you're not doing the samples, you're going to miss out. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Love you.